Hello, I'm Peter Daniel and I'm going to talk about fluoride. I live in New Zealand, in fact New Zealand, Australia and the UK. Fluoride was introduced here from the United States, or by the United States, as a great benefit to oral health. Of course, it was going to be a great benefit to oral health. Well, it never was, it never is, and it's never going to be. And I'm going to talk about the reasons for that. If you've ever read a book by an Englishman called Christopher Bryson called The Fluoride Deception, you'll know what I'm talking about. Back in the 1920s and 30s, a Danish scientist by the name of Kaj Roholm went into the foundries throughout Europe and in the United States later on and discovered that where fluoride had first been introduced into the smelters there to help flux the metals, the people were virtually falling apart inside these factories. And he was very good at winning lawsuits on behalf of these people who were crippled by fluoride. It was so successful that he went into the United States and started doing the same thing. Now, it was getting really bad for some of these big corporations like the Aluminium Corporation of the United States. Now, they were spending the equivalent of billions of dollars in lawsuits. So they formed their own corporation, the Mellon Corporation, or the Mellon Institute, and they got in their own lawyers, called the Fluoride Lawyers, and they got their own scientist in. They got Mr. Publicity America involved to convince the doctors and dentists. In those days they were all considered to be gods, of course. A scientist actually started doing a study on fluoride, and it was meant to be a 5-year study. Within 6 months, fluoride was being introduced into our waterways. As for the fluoride lawyers, they were some of the best lawyers, hand-picked lawyers in the United States, and the lawsuits all started going down the gurgler. So you can see how successful they were in those early days. And all of that science that was done then has gone out the window now. It's all shown to be absolute rubbish. Now, of course, I'm a layperson, and the pro-fluoridationists will argue that lay people don't really understand the science of fluoride. Well, I've got bad news for them. Science has actually changed. I worked for 22 years closely and alongside scientists on a nature reserve as a ranger there. And believe you me, I can tell you that science is available now. One of the things that the good scientists do is to try to make their science available to the lay people. And that has happened through the medium of the internet. Absolutely wonderful. You can go and look at scientific reports there. There are hundreds of thousands of them, if not millions of reports. And the ones that are anti-fluoride far outweigh the ones that are pro. And if you do find some pro-fluoride ones, you'll find that you can shoot them down by looking at other reports from other scientists who are shooting them down. There's just no argument. Now, what are some of the nasty things about fluoride? Well, there's been a lot of science now done. One that comes to mind straight away is a British woman who did a PhD on the pineal gland. The pineal gland is right in the centre of your brain. It's a little gland there. It's like a brain within a brain. The rest of your brain is safe from fluoride. There's a blood barrier there that stops it getting in, but not the pineal gland. It collects the stuff. That's right, it collects fluoride. And it's responsible for how much melatonin and serotonin is produced for your body and for your hormones. And there's one state in America, one town in America that's been fluoridated for a long time. The girls there, it has been proven, have reached puberty about 5 or 6 months faster than in a town which is close by, which has never been fluoridated. This is just one little incidence of what could be happening via the pineal gland. There's also the thyroid gland. Back in the 50s, to slow down the amount of thyroid that was being produced, which was causing problems, fluoride was actually prescribed to some people. Well, of course, they stopped doing that, but now people are taking in about the same amount of fluoride who have normal thyroid situation. What's happening is that the United States and New Zealand, Australia, and the UK, there's an absolute outbreak of what's called hyperthyroidism. That's right, through underactivity of the thyroid gland. Have a look at that. This is a very serious situation. And then there's fluorosis. Well, you know, they say it's merely cosmetic. Just a little bit of, you know, streaks and white streaks and faint streaks and things on your teeth. Merely cosmetic. Don't worry about it. What a load of garbage. If your teeth are fluorosed, they are damaged. And that means that your bones are damaged because your teeth are a window into your skeleton. They're a part of your skeleton. And they say that what's happening throughout the world now, where there is fluoridation, and has been for a long time, people in their 40s and 50s are starting to get arthritis. They're just shoving it off and saying, oh, well, you know, that's, you know, c'est la vie, you know, something else that they've eaten or had in the past, or maybe, you know, they've inherited the genes or whatever. It's fluoride, believe you me. And then there's brain damage. Now, a woman called Phyllis Mullinix, I mean, she does, it's not just her, there's masses of research in China in particular, but Phyllis Mullinix, a brilliant American scientist who did research with fluoride, she was asked to do it as part of her job on rats, and it was a long study. And what she discovered was that baby rats exhibited things like ADD, ADHD, and all of those nasty things. Now, I'm 68 years old, going on 69. When I went to school, at primary school, when I went to college, there was no ADD, no ADHD, none of those problems that we see now, which are everywhere where there is fluoridation. That's right, there were none of them. So that's just to give you an example of some of the things that fluoride, I believe, is responsible for. Yeah, and you know, there's I think arguably the worst one of all. It's probably about this time when I start talking about it that you may want to turn me off, because you may think, well, he's gone far enough already. But during the Second World War, in the early stages, the Germans and the Americans were cooperating in one sense, and this was on the issue of understanding fluoride and how it worked. And the Germans carried out some experiments. Read this, you'll find it on the internet and many sites. They carried out experiments with fluoride, and where better to carry out those experiments than on the Jewish people who were in the concentration camps, feeding it to them through their water supplies, probably a much larger amount than you and I get. But nevertheless, what they discovered was that those people who were destined to go to the gas chambers weren't too worried about it. In fact, they probably thought, well, this is actually not really such a bad thing because we're going to our maker. They were calmed down, they were dumbed down, they were turned into sort of zombies, you know. And so they just went and... Do you know that fluoxetine, which is an antidepressant capsule, holds 94% of it as fluoride? That's right. Yeah, we're being given that in our water supplies. And is this good for government? Is this good for the corporations? Of course it is. It's exceptionally good. That's what they want. They want us to be dumbed down. They don't want us to go out and protest. They don't want us to hold up flags and protest against price rises. You know that block of cheese that was $5 last week and has now gone up to $10? They don't want us to. They don't want us to protest when they decide to go and nuclear or bomb some other country. Maybe it'll be Iran next time. It'd be much nicer if we're pacified, if we're quiet, if we're just accepting of the whole issue. So really, you know, that's what I've got to say about fluoride. The biggest thing is, I want a choice as to whether I have it in my water or not. And if I choose to say no, then so be it. I'm not hurting or damaging anyone else. If I choose to say yes, I want it in my water supply, and therefore I want it in everyone else's water supplies, what's that saying about me? Yes, so have a good look at it, and my advice is fight it, stop it. Stop it from going in your water supplies if it already is, and make sure that it never goes in. Thank you very much.